All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 8th Town Hall from Team Renacci. Tonight we're going to discuss restoring law and order in the state. We're joined tonight, of course, with former Congressman Jim Renacci, but with special guests, Cleveland Police Detective Steve Loomis, who is also the former Cleveland Police Union President, and our friend State Representative Sara Carruthers. Again, tonight we will have a half-hour discussion with our panelists, and then we turn it over to you. There is a raise your hand feature at the bottom of your screen. We would ask if you click that, get in line for a question tonight as the discussion goes along. And we want to turn that last hour over for you to ask questions to anyone on our panel. To kick things off tonight, we'll turn it over to you, Congressman Renacci.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you all for joining tonight. As Tom said, this is our 8th basic town hall where we're reaching out, talking to Ohioans, discussing issues. And tonight's a pretty important issue, restoring law and order, especially what we saw occur in Columbus over the last couple of days, but also across our nation. So it was good to get a couple special guests on tonight. Representative Carruthers, who has a bill pending, and also Detective Loomis of the Cleveland Police Department, where we could talk about some issues, some of your thoughts, and some of your concerns. Again, this town hall will have anywhere from, our lowest one was around 350 people to we've had over 1,000. So we welcome you all. We hope you talk to your friends and neighbors, and especially as we continue to bring topics forward. What I like to do is introduce myself for those of you that don't know me, and then we'll introduce the guests. We'll have a little discussion, and then we'll open it up for questions. For those that don't know me, I'm proud to say that I moved to Ohio 39 years ago. I've been married for 38 years to my wife, who I met in high school, 34 years as a father, and 30 years as an usher in my church in Wadsworth. But other than that, I've also been in business across the state of Ohio. I've owned and operated over 60 businesses, created over 1,500 jobs, and employed over 3,000 people in my almost 4 decades in business. I currently am still in business after I left Washington. And many of you know, as Tom said, former congressman, I also served in Washington for 8 years. Now, I went to Washington because of the infringement of the government. Most people say, why would you, a business guy, why would you go to Washington? Well, one of my business was a Chevy dealership. And many of you remember in 2009, the federal government took over General Motors. I was running a Chevy dealership. I had 50 some employees. I was building a brand new location on the highway, all of the positive things that I remember doing in my community. And then one day, federal government takes over General Motors, and General Motors decides through the federal government, not General Motors, because remember, they wanted me to build a new location, but the federal government picked and chose who was essential and who wasn't. And lo and behold, I got a letter that said, your Chevy dealership is not essential anymore. I called my congressman at that time, a Democrat, and we talked. He came to the facility. He said he would help me. He said he'd help me restore my dealership. When the vote came up to restore my dealership and many others across the country, he voted no. And I got to tell you, that was the second kick in the stomach for me, because I called him up immediately and said, not only are you a liar and somebody I can't trust, but I'm going to remove you from that office, even if I have to run. I had no interest in running for U.S. Congress, but that's what drove me to Congress. I spent the next 14 months in a very competitive race, a national race where President Obama actually came in and supported this member of Congress. And I'm proud to say after 14 months, I defeated him and went to Washington. Washington, I served 8 years. It's a broken place. I decided that the only way to fix Washington is really get back to Ohio, and we got to fix it here in Ohio. And for the last couple of years, that's what I've been doing. I've been traveling the state, talking about issues and talking about how we can make Ohio stronger. So we've had town halls that have talked about spending and taxes and many of the other issues in Ohio. But this is a pretty important one too, restoring law and order. And it's something that's going to affect us all as we continue down the path in Ohio or even across this nation. So I am proud to say that I'm a big believer in the law, and I'm also a big supporter. I was a firefighter for many years in Wadsworth. I'm a big supporter of first responders. But with that, let's introduce our first guest, which is State Representative Sara Carruthers. State Representative, you want to give a little background about yourself?
Hi there. Well, my story is rather similar to yours, as a matter of fact. I was active in politics on the fringe. My father and I both worked with the Butler County Republican Party, both in the executive committee, and so I was, working with the Republican Party, but it never occurred to me to run for office. It was not in my purview at all. And it was actually my son who coerced me to run. We were at the State House for a school trip, and Senator Coley and Carolyn Coley, I'm sure you know the Coleys, used to do a fabulous day there for their school. And I was one of the chaperones. And my son asked about who his state representative was. And when Bill told him, my son outed with all the information that he knew about the man. And because my father and I talked politics very openly in my home. And so my child actually coerced me into doing this, and I had a tough race. I ran against two incumbents my first time. I ran against Wes Rutherford and Greg Jolivet. So it was tough. And for somebody totally new to running a campaign, it was amazing. But I love what I do. I love this state. I think that I think Washington's crazy. I think Ohio, we have the right ideas. I love seeing what can be done in this area, and I'm very proud to be an Ohioan. I think, what we do at the Ohio House and in the Senate really makes a difference, and you can come home and see it. And that means a lot to me. That means a lot to me. I am the mother of twins, boy and girl, Rogue and Elizabeth, who I'm terribly proud of, as any mother would be. And I was in the media. I worked for WKRC TV, WKRC Radio, and WKRQ. And then I worked for TV Hamilton and TCI. So I was very comfortable with media and still am. I don't have a problem with it. I do think the media now is so incredibly biased, and we weren't before. It was biased, but certainly not like this. And you got a feel for what the news was. Nobody tried to steer you. So it's interesting to see it from this side of the coin. And it's difficult. It really is, because no matter what you say to them, they try and skew it a different way. So.
Well, thank you, Representative. And by the way, we have something in common. I'm the father of twins, a boy and a girl as well. So
there you go.
Yeah. Well, very good. Thank you for being here tonight.
My
and now I'd
pleasure.
love to introduce Steve Loomis, Detective Loomis, who's been a friend. Also, Steve, make sure you tell them about the Trump days, because I still always like to talk about that. I still remember in 2016 going to meet candidate Trump, and I thought I was going to be in a room with hundreds of people in Cleveland, and there was only 3 of us, because at that time, nobody seemed to want to support candidate Trump. But I got a nice meeting with him, and we talked about Ohio. But please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you've done and even the Trump days.
Well, first, thank you for having me on. It's an honor to be here. I am a Cleveland police officer currently. I'm assigned to the homicide unit in the city of Cleveland. Prior to that, I was a 6-year veteran of the United States Navy, and we were deployed for almost a year during Operation Desert Storm, so it's a little while back. We lived in California at the time, and my wife at the time did not like California at all. We were out there for the Rodney King riots and all the nonsense that goes on out in that state. So I got out of the Navy and came back to the East Coast. I'm originally from Rochester, New York. I have family up there, and took the test in Cleveland, Ohio, and ended up here. And absolutely love this state. This is my home, Cleveland, Ohio. The state of Ohio has absolutely right. Representative Carruthers is absolutely right. The state of Ohio is doing things right here. You know, it's always been a middle of the road state, and what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and that's how things are run here. And this is an absolute model for the country, the way the state is run, and the people in it and the citizens in it, and you know, great citizens in every city in this state, every neighborhood in every city of this state. Vast majority, great law-abiding, God-fearing people, and you know, they just live in different levels of fear depending on what neighborhood they're living in, and that's something that we have to embrace. I think Ohio does a really good job with that. We have to be there for the law-abiding citizens, and they have to be the priority. And if they're not, then we're doing things wrong. And you see that in California, you see that in New York, my original home state. You know, so we're doing things the right way here, and I'm proud to be here, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Detective. Why don't we go on to some of the statistics? Because I think that's, and then what I thought I would do is go through some of these statistics and then open it up and ask both of you your thoughts. I mean, it's interesting because one of the things we've been trying to do with these town halls is really talk about some of the issues. And part of the problem is, even though Ohio has some great people and it is a great place to live. And by the way, the best statistic is Ohio's 9th in opportunity. The problem is we've got a lot of other statistics where we're falling behind. But what's interesting, and we're going to talk about these facts and figures. Ohio is more dangerous to live in than New York and California in terms of violent crime. That's a statistic. Ohio has a higher than average violent crime rate and a much higher than average rate of property crime. National police spending has increased by 29% between 2000 and 2017. Now that's national police spending, but Ohio has the 5th highest prison population with 50,000 plus people held in Ohio prisons. Despite a smaller population, Ohio has a larger prison population than Pennsylvania with approximately 45,000. Ohio ranks 31st for white incarceration rates, 34th for Black incarceration rates, and 27th for Hispanic incarceration rates. Let's go to the next page in those statistics as well. Ohio's murder rate is 6.1% above the national average of 5%. So that's a little bit of a problem. Ohio has the 17th highest murder rate in the country, above New York, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And Ohio is home to 3 of the most dangerous cities in America: Akron, Columbus, and Cleveland. So liberals are calling to cut police departments' budgets, and really pushing to defund our police departments. And these are some statistics that are concerning. And I'd love to hear first, Detective, your thoughts, and then I'm going to come back to Representative Carruthers.
Well, the people that are pushing this defund the police and reimagine the police, they're falling back on because defund wasn't going well for them. Those folks are people that have agendas. They're not representative of the law-abiding citizens. And we're out there in the street every day, and we have people, all kinds of support from the law-abiding citizens. You have to remember that term. Defunding the police is a terrible idea because somebody is going to take over. Imagine taking the police departments away. We're going to get rid of them all. Well, somebody's going to take over. We've seen that in countries. Iraq is a great one. You know, we went in there and did what we did, and then we left, and somebody took over, and boom, we got the Taliban and everything else going on. So it's not a question of whether we can do it or not. If they do it, if they continue to defund us, which they have in Cleveland, by the way, since 2004, when Jane Campbell got in office, things are just going to get worse and worse. And that's exactly what we're seeing. We have a consent decree in Cleveland that was put in during the Obama administration. And the policies, the things that go on, the policies that we have now are very, very prohibitive in what we can and can't do to proactively police in the community. And it's just not working. 189 homicides last year compared to 123 the year before in the city of Cleveland. So that's a per capita we have a higher homicide rate than the city of Chicago. We always hear about Chicago because their numbers are so big, but per 100,000 residents, we have a homicide rate that's 3.5 victims higher than the city of Chicago, and it's completely unacceptable. We're not addressing the problem by attacking the police. You know, there's ways that we can do things better, maybe. I believe in community-oriented policing. You put 2 cars in every zone and leave them to their work and leave them in their little zone, their little patch, we call it. And they get to know the good people. They get to know the not so good people. They get to know, you know, Aunt Mabel. They see a couple newspapers piling up on her front door. Go knock on the door and see what's going on with Aunt Mabel. You know, it's really just that simple. It just takes political will, and that's something that, you know, unfortunately we haven't had here in the city of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County.
Again, thank you, Detective. And actually, thank you for your service in the military as well. I mean,
Thank you very much.
Sometimes we don't thank our veterans and our first responders enough. But I mean, these statistics are very alarming. And it's one of the reasons why we do these town halls, because so many people think, I mean, we love Ohio. We love being here. We think Ohio is great. We do think the people are great. But then you start looking at the statistics and you say, wait a minute. We have the 3 most dangerous cities in America: Akron, Columbus, and Cleveland. And if you look at the statistics tell us that. So, Representative Carruthers, I know you're working on a bill that I think is very helpful. I don't know if you want to comment on any of these facts or statistics before we talk about the bill.
I will, because you may or may not know that I am the chairman of the Behavioral Health and Recovery Committee, which we are the 2nd state to put that in place. I think we're going to be filled because of the pandemic. We know that, you know, our suicides are up, but mental health is really up. And I think part of the problem, part of the issue too, with as many as are incarcerated, is mental health. A lot of those people don't need to be incarcerated. They need some mental health, and it's not up to the jails. But that's a whole other issue. And I think that's a lot of the violence that you're seeing too. They're self-medicating themselves, and they're not taking the right stuff, right? They're taking the illegal stuff and going nuts. That's probably not an appropriate thing to say, but it's true. As far as my bill, I'm very proud of this bill. I did it with Cindy Abrams, Rep. Abrams. She is a former Cincinnati police officer. It was time. Who knew it was going to be really totally time? And now we're seeing it again in Columbus. But we started this because of the riots in Columbus this summer. Both of us were working during those riots, and make no mistake, they were riots. We have peaceful protests every day at the State House, and we are totally behind that. We go out. There was one person the other day, and I offered him coffee. I mean, they are fine. They're good people. They want to get their message across. I'm all for peaceful protest. This is definitely trying to cause chaos, to cause violence. And, you know, our businesses were having a problem anyway with Corona. They had closed down. Then all of a sudden the riots started hitting. Businesses were shut down. The windows were broken. Things were looted. And I don't know that they'll ever come back. Many will never come back. It was a tragedy to see Columbus during that period of time. Not only was it scary, which I can tell you it was just tragic, and there was no reason for it. We all agreed. And actually, it was interesting to see the people that worked in the State House talk about it, not the representatives, the cleaning help, the people that worked every day to make our lives go like clockwork, and how they treated the whole thing. They were disgusted by the riots. It's very interesting. We are moving the bill. We are moving the bill. We had our second hearing today for proponents. I think it's going very well. We are getting all sorts of things from police officers from all over the state. So I think it's an excellent bill. Really, yes, it's already against the law. We know that. But I think if you raise the felony, it's going to make more of an impact. It's going to make more, because nobody wants that on their record. So.
Well, look, I want to thank you for putting this bill out. I had the opportunity to hear Lieutenant Governor Mark Roberts from North Carolina, I believe, last Friday speak about this issue. And if you ever have a chance to hear him speak, you should. He says, let everybody understand, we believe in peaceful protest, but when you break windows and you start looting, you are a criminal and you should be prosecuted to the highest part of the law. So I'm hoping that we can do that. We should be able to stand up and say, I mean, that's the purpose of tonight's discussion. We should be able to stand up and say, peaceful protest is fine.
You know, I'm very blessed. I come from a county with Sheriff Jones, who everybody knows. And I have three fabulous police chiefs in my district. So I really am very blessed as it is. We haven't had any of those problems, but driving to and from Columbus, the things I have seen are amazing. And then going to Cincinnati, it's just a shame. And these business owners have done nothing wrong. And it doesn't matter. They can put a Black Lives Matter sign up. It doesn't matter. They're still going to get decimated for no reason.
Detective, you want to talk about Cleveland? Because I know we had those riots there in Cleveland as well.
Yeah. Chief Williams does an excellent job up here. He's got an open line of communication. I had an open line of communication when I was the union president with some of the leadership in those groups. And they understood in no uncertain terms that we're going to support them to infinity for their right to go to public square or wherever and peacefully have their say. The minute the first rock gets thrown, there's going to be a problem. And the chief will tell them that. And we actually escort them around. We have a very good rapport with those groups. And it's a communication issue. If you get out in front of it and you communicate with those folks and you let them know what the ground rules are going to be, then you don't have the problems. What happened last summer in Cleveland kind of caught us off guard. And that wasn't local Cleveland people. That was agenda-driven national folks from all over the country that piled in there and started, did the things that they did, broke the windows. And these are business owners, small business owners, like the representative said. It's everything they can do to start that business, let alone keep it running without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to reopen it and get it back in shape. For what? What did you accomplish? That's a part of a national agenda that we're seeing right now. Here locally in Cleveland, we have a small group of regulars that we deal with, and that's it. And we welcome their opinion. They can stand on public square for a month telling us what they think about us or what they think about, and that's America. That's the way it should be, man. But it's not breaking windows and looting and an excuse to, go into Walmart and strip it clean, 72-inch TVs and everything else. What are you protesting by stealing a 72-inch TV? So that's against the law. They should be held accountable for that. The prosecutor up here in Cuyahoga County is good for that, Michael OMalley. But some of them aren't across the city. We see hundreds and hundreds of people that they're not even fined or given their day in court. And all that does is promote more of it. If there's not a consequence for bad behavior, then it's going to continue and it's going to get worse and it's going to get more violent. And that's what we're seeing That's what we're seeing in every major city, and in the country, every major Democratic city in the country. Nobody likes to hear that either, but that's the reality.
Democrat, Detective, you want to go over some of your solutions from law enforcement perspective?
Sure. We went downstate a few years back and asked for them to put a section in the driver's manual, the Ohio State driver's manual, that taught the kids, right? We got 15-and-a-half-year-olds. It's a captive audience. Everybody wants their permit. Teach them what to do if they're approached by the police. The manual tells them what to do if there's a fire truck or somebody coming by. But if you get pulled over, teach them what to do. Just put a couple paragraphs in there, and make that part of the test. And we went down and we're shopping around for support on that. And we got a lot of pushback from the representatives from this area, the Democratic representatives, saying, that we should train the cops how to deal with the teenagers. We know how to deal with the teenagers. Why would you push back on something like that that makes sense? It doesn't make sense. The other thing that we proposed was an additional 3 months on the end of the police academy to do reality-based training. You get a couple of old timers. You have LGBT domestic violence, stage that and send the cadets in and see how they handle it. The best part about that is that you have leadership from the LGBT community up on the catwalk, and then they can come down and critique how those young cadets did after their training. It makes all the sense in the world, but you have to, and the mayor loved it. The mayor loved the idea. The Department of Justice loved the idea. The problem, they just didn't implement it. There was no political will because there's a certain, amount of pushback from the squeaky wheels of the world to normal people. That makes complete sense. And then finally, one of the best things I think that we proposed was putting two cars in every zone. There's 35 zones in Cleveland, but you could do this anywhere. If you have enough cars on the street and you keep them in their little small box, they get to know the people. We want community engaged policing. We all do. We know that works. We can't solve these crimes in a homicide unit or anywhere else without help from the community. So we want them to trust us. And the only way they get to know you and trust you is if they see you all the time and they see the same guys all the time. Hey, that's Officer Steve. They know that I'm going to be there from 8 o'clock in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you put 2 cars in that zone, they're going to get to know the good people. They're going to get to know the kids by name. They're going to get to know the not so good people. And they're going to be really familiar. And that's going to be the neighborhood cop. And now you got, give them business cards to pass out. We don't even have business cards. Give them business cards to pass out to people so they know who they're dealing with. It's really, really simple. Communication is the name of the game. And they just don't. I mean, we're operating at skeleton crews for whatever reason here in the city of Cleveland, and we don't have proactive policing, going on. We can come and do a really good report for you when something bad happens, and we'll investigate. Of course, we're going to investigate any homicides, but we're doing nothing to get out into the community and forge those relationships with the law-abiding citizens. Very little is done with that. Very little, and that's unfortunate. The last thing we asked them to do was the city of Cleveland owns all these buildings, right? Schools, grammar schools, parks and recreation places, libraries, any public building. We asked that they put an office in there for Cleveland police officers. Put a Cleveland police badge on it. You go to an elementary school. Jim, you and I, go there to do routine paperwork because we have an office space, right? And while I'm in doing the paperwork, you're out in the hall glad handing with the kids. Positive interaction with little kids, young kids. That's the key to success. And we haven't had that since 2004 when Jane Campbell got rid of the community policing unit here and all the other units that did the proactive stuff. So that's what we're seeing the result of.
And look, there are all kind of things. By the way, I would also tell you, I spent time at Fort Knox doing reality training where you are engaged in a situation. You have to make a decision whether you're going to be shot, whether what the situation is. And I could tell you that's another thing that it'd be great for people to have that training, because I failed multiple times because you have so few seconds to make a decision. And
Yeah.
police officers are put in that situation all the time. I mean, you think, okay, I'm going to let this continue, and the next thing you know, you're shot. So these are the kind of things I agree with you. We got to get that out more and more. And Representative Carruthers, I wanted to pass one other thing on to you. There was a day that I used to operate mental health facilities. That was way back 20 some years ago. That was before the state and federal government decided to close them down. I can tell you today, those mental health individuals are just out on the street or they're in prison. And that's another issue we've got to start taking a look at as well.
Exactly. Absolutely. And it's a shame because really, they don't really want to be violent. They don't want to be searching around, wandering around like this. This is just, it's a shame. It really is. I feel for so many of these people, and the jails are not where they should be.
Exactly.
Just not where they should be.
Tom, why don't we open it up for some questions?
We got plenty of questions lined up here. We're going to move first to Aaron Borowski. Aaron, go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, hello. So far, I think tonight's going absolutely wonderful. My question is for any of you three to answer. With the riots of last summer, in your opinion or opinions, what were the positive and or negative responses from Mike DeWine and how he handled the overall situation?
Well, Aaron, I'll go first by saying that I do think the governor, look, I always try and do comparisons. How are some of the other states handling this? We see many times how some of the Democrat cities and Democrat states are doing it, where they're just letting things occur. Quite frankly, I wish that in many cases leadership would always step up and say what the lieutenant governor said in North Carolina, which is, we're okay with peaceful protests, but we do have to be able to step up and say, if you're a criminal, and you're looting, and you are breaking in, you should be, to the highest level of the law, you should be prosecuted. And I wish we'd hear more of that. But again, Steve, do you have any thoughts on that? And then we'll go to Representative Carruthers.
Well, I can tell you this. I think we all got taken by surprise with that particular set of riots. But in a very, very short period of time, we had a whole bunch of state troopers and we had the National Guard here in Cleveland. So I would imagine that Mike DeWine was involved in that. And that happened very, very rapidly. That wasn't something that took days to occur. So as far as that, I don't know what he was or wasn't privy to and when and all that stuff. But I know that he did send help and very quickly.
Representative Carruthers?
I can tell you, you have to remember that Mike was AG. He stands with law and order. I can tell you that much. We had $158,000 damage at the State House alone. So I can tell you that the troopers were, yes, to answer you, Steve, yes, that was Mike. Yeah, he was very upset by it. I think he takes everything rather personally. He was consumed with coronavirus, but I think this was a personal affront to him. No, it really, he works there. He works at the Rife. Things were happening in both places. I don't think anybody expected it to go down like it did. Really, it was also, unfortunately, the mayor didn't want it to go towards the city hall. And so they were going towards the State House instead of City Hall. They moved, and I think Steve would probably, looking at a map, see exactly what I'm saying. They corralled them the wrong way to protect City Hall. And instead they went towards the State House area, which was wrong, which actually our Cincinnati cops are better at doing because, but anyway, I think it shocked him. I think he was terribly upset and he got those National Guards out there, and he got the Highway State Patrol out there right away.
Jim, there is a follow-up question through the question chat. What's keeping Ohio, the city of Columbus, and the city of Cleveland from punishing the rioters and the lawbreakers for those events last summer?
Well, look,
Mayors.
yeah, that's a good question because
The
they should be,
mayors.
yeah, the mayors, you're right. These people should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And look, if I had a business in Cleveland or Columbus and they destroyed my business, first off, I lose revenue. Insurance sometimes doesn't pay for this. This is just outright property damage. And that's what's great about tonight's discussion. It's about law and order. We have to have law and order.
Yeah, and I know that they made dozens and dozens of prosecutions. I just don't know how that compares to how many arrests they made. You know what I mean? But Mike OMalley was not afraid, politically or otherwise, to prosecute people that were probably the worst of the offenders. You know, so there was prosecutions in Cuyahoga County for sure.
Representative Carruthers, you have anything to add?
Well, here's the problem too, but it's the mayors. It's, I mean, the mayor in Columbus really, you know, it's kind of worthless. But part of the problem too that I saw driving back and forth, I can tell you this, a majority of the people that I saw were not Columbus people going to Columbus.
That's correct.
I saw license plates from all over that I normally don't see. And I can tell you, I'm pretty sure they were the people coming to demonstrate or riot and do these things. We have copies of texts from people that we presented in criminal justice committee that show that they were loaded for bear, so to speak, with, we have this for tonight, we have gloves, we have shields, that kind of thing. And these people were coming from all over the country. They were not Columbus people. They were not Ohioans. They were license plates from all over, because I did take an inventory of that coming up.
And we're going to move on to the next question here. Next question is from Tara.
Hi, Jim. Thanks for taking my question. I actually have a two-part question. First part is, what are the opinions of the panelists with Governor DeWine sending our state troopers to Minnesota, knowing that given what happened last year after the George Floyd incident, that we had rioting here? Did he leave us understaffed, undermanned, and their co-workers without some backup? And also, why is DeWine not pushed for harder punishment for those that are rioting and looting like they've done in Florida? Just looking to see what your opinions are on that.
Well, Tara, my first answer would always be that it should be Ohio first. We should make sure that we are protecting Ohio. We should not be sending, look, it's nice to help other states. I get that. And it's nice to do your part nationally. But I think in the end, we really got to always make sure that we are protecting Ohio and protecting Ohio first. I also do believe, and I was listening to, my other two guests tonight. One of the fears I have is sometimes people go to the places that they feel from other states that they feel are easier to go after versus some of the other states. I mean, why do they go to Minnesota? Why do they go to Ohio? Why do they go to some of these other states? Well, because I do think we need to step up and say, we are not going to allow this to occur. And we have to have this as really a standard. And I think that's important. I mean, it's good to be able to say we did this or we did that, but I also do believe we have to let people know, you come into our state and you do the wrong thing and you're going to be prosecuted to the full extent of the law. And I wish we heard more of that, because I do believe that will deter people from coming. Detective?
You're absolutely right, Jim. It will absolutely deter people from coming. I can tell you, you can see that in where they go. You're 100% right. Cleveland was a soft target last summer because we weren't expecting, hey, that's going on in Minnesota, whatever's going on up there that has nothing to do with us, and we kind of got caught in that. And the representative is absolutely right. Foreign license plates, they had access to our communication. They knew what they were doing. They knew where they were going, and they knew exactly what they were doing. It had nothing to do with George Floyd. Half of those folks probably couldn't spell the man's name, and they were here to push an agenda, and that's exactly what they did. As far as sending state troopers to Minnesota, I mean, that happens a lot. We had state troopers from all over the country here for the RNC, if you remember. And I don't think that's going to, I think there was only 100 of them if I read it somewhere, but I'm not sure about that. But, that's just part and parcel, because you never know what day we may need their help here again. So the state police, especially the state police across the country, are all cooperative. We had state police from California here for the RNC, from New York, New Jersey, all over the place. And it was great to see them. Michigan and Ohio state troopers were working together, despite the rivalry. So it was we help each other out, when we need the help, and that's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Representative Carruthers.
What I was going to say, first of all, we don't know, and I agree with
You froze up. Hey, Tom, it looks like she's frozen up.
Yep, I see that.
Why don't we go to the next question and we'll come back if she.
Okay, we're gonna move on and see if we can get Sara, Representative Carruthers back. We're gonna go back to next question from Russ Fisher.
Good, Russ, you have to unmute.
Yep, click the unmute. There we go. Hey, Russ.
All right, yeah, I'm on. Thanks, Mr. Renacci, Mr. Loomis. Thanks for having me. I did 23 years in the military, 13 plus in law enforcement.
God bless you.
And I've seen on the military side, when politicians get involved, they criticize, well, we want you to defeat the enemy, but don't destroy too much. And we've got that same type of situation in law enforcement as well, too. Now, the big problem that we have is we have the media and the left wing really pushing the anti-police agenda, which makes it extremely difficult and dangerous for our brothers and sisters out on the street right now. And that's something that really bothers me. I've had 5 friends in blue just retire in the last 2 months. And right now in my county, I've got probably 6 or 7 agencies right now, all looking for lateral transfers because they are hurting for officers. This is something that needs to be addressed. I mean, we're going to get to a point that people's lives are going to be on the line as if they're not already. Somebody talked about that?
Well, Russ, thank you. And thank you for your service in the military, and thank you for your service in law enforcement. I put out a post today on my Facebook page that just basically said, I stand with the police and first responders who protect us and keep us safe. And if you look at the responses, that's a pretty simple post. You would think everybody would be in favor of that. But I had people saying, you don't get it. You're stirring up the pot. How can you be stirring up the pot just saying you stand with people who protect us and keep us safe? And that's the problem. You mentioned the media. The media is pushing this narrative, but there are also so many people out there that are pushing that narrative. And I hate to say it, a lot of them from the Democrat side. And there's a lot of good Democrats, and I have a lot of great Democrat friends. But some people on the far left seem to want to push that narrative. And quite frankly, they'd be the first to scream when somebody didn't show up at their house, or if there was a problem, that nobody came to protect them. So I get very frustrated when I see this, defund the police and all these other things. But I think the answer is people are willing to say something, step up, talk about it. Don't be afraid of it. I say it all the time. I was a first responder on the fire department. And when I look at the police officers and the firefighters and our veterans, all those people who are willing to step up and make us safe, we should be thanking them. We shouldn't be criticizing them. Now, there are some bad police officers, there's some bad attorneys, there's some bad accountants, there's some bad politicians, there's bad in everything. But you can't take the smallest portion of that group and blame everybody. Detective Loomis, your thoughts? I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I work with these men and women. They are absolute heroes, absolute heroes. And I'll tell you this, Jim, we have 1 million contacts with citizens every day in this country. Law enforcement does 1 million contacts. How many do you hear about that went bad or even were controversial? A handful, maybe, but 1 million contacts, 1 million successful contacts a day, and throughout the country. We have 500,000 in Cleveland alone every year. And how many that go bad do you hear about? It's not just the law enforcement officers, as this gentleman brought out, that are in danger because of this rhetoric and because of the media and the ambulance chasing attorneys and the politicians that want to weigh in, and LeBron James wants to weigh in all of a sudden like he knows anything about law enforcement. It's not just the cops that are in danger, it's the law-abiding citizens that are in danger. You know, carjackings are through the roof now. The kids are getting, the criminals, the violent criminals are getting younger and younger and younger. So we have to do something with our juvenile court system because that's not working. At least here in Cuyahoga County, if it was, we wouldn't have off the charts carjackings and violent crimes and homicides. You know, I have homicide suspects in the DH right now. It's crazy what's going on here, and the lack of response is criminal, in my opinion. It is a dereliction of duty on everybody that has a decision to make on what direction we're going to go. If they want to pull us out of here, hey, I got 27 years on, man, you know, but I don't want to bail on my neighbors. None of us do. We don't. I have 4 kids and 4.5 grandkids that live in this city. I still live in Cleveland. We don't want to go anywhere. But if you're going to keep ignoring the problems that we have and blaming the cops for it, then you better bet money that, you know, Loomis and his clan are going to be out of here. And, you know, we'll go out to Wyoming or someplace and you know, wait for it to come out there, you know, 40 years from now. It's ridiculous, and it's political. We have to have the political strength of character and the political will to make the changes that are needed. You know, prison reform, all for it. If you catch an 8-year sentence and you you get your GED or you get a welding certificate while you're in jail, I got no problem as a citizen of this state saying, hey, have fun, man. We're gonna cut your sentence down in half. There's got to be some incentive. Right now, the prison system is broke because, number one, it's a private industry, which is a terrible idea. And number two, there's nothing to reform. There's nothing for these guys to get out of jail to do. You know, they're going right back into the same neighborhoods, doing the same thing. You know, if you give them some incentive to get their sentences reduced after they're in there, then, you know, things are probably going to get a little bit better, I would guess. But, you know, that's just me, 27 years on the job here on the streets of Cleveland. You know, that's what we see.
Representative Carruthers, we're happy to have you back. We lost you there for a while.
Thank you. Well, we lost power. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know if you want to add anything.
I just think really the country is suffering from a lack of respect. We're suffering from a lack of self-respect. We're suffering from a lack of respect for authority. We're suffering from a lack of respect, and everybody wants to be the strongest person in the room. And, you know, it boggles my mind a lot. You know, I have to tell you, my first day in Columbus, and this was before I was a legislator, I had an important meeting and I drove up, and I am not good with directions. And I parked my car and I went to my meeting and I came out and I could not find my car. And I was getting panicked and I walked to where, I used all the apps that show you where your car is. And I thought, well, this is crazy. And finally I walked up to a police car and because what do, right? You go to a police officer. That's what I was taught. They are your friends. They are helpful and they can help you. And I walked up and I said, officer, I am sorry to bother you, but I am so confused. I parked here. I have walked. I have high heels. I am so upset. I can't find my car. It may have been stolen. I don't know. Could you help me? He drove me around for 15 minutes looking for my car. It wasn't stolen. It was right there.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you what, he was delightful. And I always thought that's what police officers were. They were helpful. That's what I've taught my children. They are helpful people and they are there to protect you, to guide you, to help you do things. And you should feel safe going to a police officer in any realm. This to me is just, to hate police officers, it confuses me, to be quite frank. My family put up a sculpture actually of two children holding on to a police officer's hand in front of the Hamilton Police Department because that's what they're there for. They're there to help you.
Great.
Thank you. And you know what? It's interesting because when you see somebody like LeBron James come out with that tweet today, that is just disgusting. Because
Insightful.
again, he would want the police officers coming right to the defense of every one of his children.
Yes, sir.
Actually, what it was racist.
Yeah.
It was racist.
And inciting. It was inciting. To what end? What good came of that other than to provoke division?
Nothing.
Yep.
Nothing.
Yep. Great points and great question, Russ. We're going to move on to the next question. John Spisak, go ahead and unmute and toss your question out.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you, John.
Right,
Okay,
John.
here's my, I got a lot of questions. I'm going to try to group this together. How as we as law-abiding citizens protect ourselves if our life is in danger, if these so-called rioters come down our streets in the suburbs? Okay, can we protect our homes? Or what do we do? Somebody else said get a CCW license. Well, I'm 66 years old and I did get a CCW license a year ago before the pandemic hit. I timed it perfect. And
John, we must have lost John, but I would say, John, you just answered a question. I mean, I'm a concealed carry holder. I believe that one of the reasons we have the Second Amendment is to protect ourselves, our family, our possessions. I'm also a believer that we should change the law that if you own a business, you should be able to protect your business as well, and have the Castle Doctrine even included in your business. So I think those are the kind of things we should be talking about because you should be able to protect yourself. And CCW is one of the best places to do it. It's one of the reasons why the licenses are going through the roof across the country. Sarah, do you have any thoughts there?
I think how sad is it that we all have to get our CCW. I have my CCW also. How sad is that's the first thing that we think, but I think it's important. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't your business covered by the Castle Doctrine at this point? Wasn't there just a law in this last GA? I'm almost positive.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the stand your
Kyle
ground.
Kaler's bill.
The stand your ground also.
Yes.
So the business owners are okay, and that as
Yeah.
long as if they don't have a CCW, they can't transport that thing on their person.
Right.
But they're okay in the business. And then there's the stand your ground law to cover his question about if they're coming down the street. Well, if they're coming down the street, let them go down the street. But
Yeah.
you don't have a duty to retreat anymore. That was just recently signed.
That was just taken. Yes, that's already in effect now. So
Yes.
you don't have a duty to retreat, but The best place to be when there's going to be violence is away from it.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with that. I'm not, don't mistake me. I'm not saying go.
No, I
confront
know.
everybody,
I
but,
learned that from the police.
Yeah, yeah. I just got a guy trying to break in my house the other day on a Ring camera. That's something that we should talk about. I mean, you want to talk about some positive solutions to these things that government can help with, is start buying Ring cameras and passing them out like we did the carbon monoxide things. Jim, you probably remember that when as a fireman, start passing those Ring cameras out with the agreement that if something happens in the neighborhood, that that the police have access to that camera. And we solve tons and tons of crimes because so many people have them. But put a Ring camera on every house, and you will see the crime rate plummet.
Yep.
Plummet.
Well, it's interesting because when we were having problems in Congress, most people in Congress, including myself, I have cameras all around the house. But my wife was home by herself, and I was in Washington, so the camera system was a necessity. And I agree with you.
Sure.
That's another way of protecting yourself.
Yes, sir.
Great question. We're going to move on to our next question. Diane Hager is up. Go ahead and unmute Diane and ask your question to the panel.
Okay, I'm the wife of a retired police officer, and all this discussion has been extremely interesting. My question has to do with sanctuary cities. I believe that the big 3 Cs, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati, have all declared themselves sanctuary cities. And I'm just wondering if that isn't contributing to the crime statistics. And I don't know about Akron, but can you address that?
Well, Diane, I would tell you that I'm a big believer that, and of course, I always loved President Trump when he said we shouldn't be funding sanctuary states. I'm also a believer we shouldn't be funding sanctuary cities. And I do think, because let's face it, if you are harboring illegal aliens, that means you are breaking the law. We got to get back to the law. What is the law? Well, the law is today that an illegal alien is illegal. Yet there are cities like Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus that are saying, okay, you can come in to our cities, and that's violating the law. And it frustrates me when people say, well, that's okay. It's not okay. When you violate the law, you should be prosecuted. And the best way to fix that is to instead of talking about defunding the police, let's defund the cities that are being sanctuary cities. Representative Carruthers, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't agree with sanctuary cities. I think defunding is the way to go with that. Not doing businesses in those cities, it's a little hard, although it's getting easier with the riots, with the looting. There aren't very many businesses to use there. So it's sort of a wash. Shop small towns because we're not sanctuary cities.
That's a good point. Detective?
I obviously don't agree with sanctuary cities for all the reasons that the representative said and more. It just promotes lawlessness. If we're just going to ignore the laws for some folks, but hammer other folks, how can anybody, left wing, right wing, middle, think that that's okay? It just doesn't make any sense. As far as Cleveland goes, excuse me. I don't know that that's accurate. I don't recall anybody actually coming out and saying that this is a sanctuary city. And I know that we don't have any policies from the police department saying that if you commit a crime in the city of Cleveland and you happen to be an illegal alien, you get treated like any other person that got caught committing a crime. Plus, you get a hold of ICE, yeah. And we're still allowed to do that. There's nothing in policy here telling us that we can't do that.
By the way, I want to thank the last caller for being the wife of a police officer.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
At the same time.
She had the toughest job.
Right, absolutely.
There's no doubt about it, man. We law enforcement, we drag our families into this mess, kicking and screaming. You think my mom wanted me to be a cop, or my brother and sister to be cops? She was lighting candles 3 times a week down at St. Bridget's. for us, you know? So it's a terrible, terrible profession for your family
Well,
to drag your families into. So God bless you.
I only thing I would disagree with you. It is not a terrible profession, and I appreciate what you do and many others do. So
Thank you.
we need to honor and support the police. But Tom, next question.
Yep, we're going to move on to Scott Romans. Looks like he's unmuted and ready to go. So go ahead, Scott.
Yes, this is primarily for Sara. Is there any movement in Columbus to make sure that either the 1619 project curriculum or the critical race theory curriculum are not allowed to be adopted by any school that's funded by the state?
That's an interesting question. I am not on the education committee. I have not seen any legislation regarding that. I know that that is something that all of my caucus, the Republican caucus, is against. So that will be interesting to see. As far as I know, nothing. I haven't read anything coming out about that from the Democrats or the Republicans. That may be a little early, but I will keep people posted. I'm not on that committee, as I said. So I would have thought that they would have sent something out, though. But I know it hasn't. No one in my caucus would be for it. So you're okay.
I would add one thing. The governor has appointed school board members, statewide school board members who do support it. I do believe the majority of those that he has appointed do support it, which is really problematic. And I would also tell you that one of the biggest problems we have in Ohio is that because we have taken the money from the federal government, my bigger fear would be what the Biden administration is now going to push out, which is some of these critical race theories and require Ohio to adopt because we take the money. So at some point in time, and I've said this when I travel the state, we have to say no more to the federal government, but like Governor DeSantis does. But I would also tell you that the only way to do that is quit taking the money. But
it'll be tough. It'll be tough. I can tell you though, we're the super majority right now. So it's going to be interesting to see. I expect a lot of great legislation coming out because of being the super majority and getting things through. So I think you're going to be impressed this GA at what you see coming out. So I agree with you. We should stop taking the money. I would really like it if they'd quit trying to hand money out. Quite frankly, people would go back to work. But yeah, that is something, and it's tempting. There's no question about it. It's tempting.
By the way, just a little fact, which is kind of interesting. When I was in Congress, the U.S. Congress approval rating was only 15 or 16%. Today, you can look this up. It's 38 or 39%. There's a reason it's doubled, because they're handing out the money, and that's a real problem.
They're buying it. Yeah, they're buying it.
I will tell that the question asker there, and in 2 or 3 weeks, we will have our number 9 town hall will be covering education. We're going to have 2, maybe even 3 experts, state legislators and some education experts. So look for that coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Very good.
We're going to move on to Bill Ham has the next question. Bill, go ahead and unmute and toss out your question.
Yes, Rudy Giuliani drove the crime in New York City down by the broken windows theory, which was arrest and prosecute the very first person that throws a rock, jumps an aisle, whatever. What I'm concerned about and want to know from Sara is, what about the teeth in this language? If we have a rioter, I want to see him prosecuted, not released immediately and put back in on the streets. Will the bill do that?
Well, I can assure you that our bill will have teeth. We are making sure that it is a 4th degree and 5th degree felony. We have had it fully vetted with a number of attorneys. I don't think anyone thinks we're playing around, which is part of the reason that Rep. Abrams and I are getting a little bit of hate mail. It's, you know, it's to be expected. It's not bothersome. I think most people right now are scared, and so they agree with us. I think you can find that this bill does have teeth with it, and I'll be happy if you can relay your email and everything else to send you the bill. It is a strong bill. It will be fully vetted, and we have a great deal of attorneys on it that will make sure that it's good and it's handled properly. As far as mayors and things like that, you know, you do what you can do, but you know, the police are handing out these things. If it's going to be a 4th or 5th degree, I think Steve will tell you there's not much they can do to get that off there. They can't do anything.
Yeah, you're 100% right. If it's a felony,
Yeah,
that throws the county into the mix. You know, so there, I mean, there's politicians in the county too, but that's a little bit more serious than just going down to traffic court and paying a ticket. Again, Mike OMalley does a pretty good job up here of not keeping the politics out of law enforcement. And by the way, politics should be as far away from any kind of criminal justice system. If you want it to be 100% fair, you got to keep the politicians out of that mess. You know, 100%. Lady Justice is blind, and the politics and the media and all that rhetoric, that's all nonsense to be introduced into a criminal justice proceeding. You know, so.
Well, I 100% believe in what you're saying there, and I agree. And when the President of the United States steps in and starts talking about it, that's a real problem. And you know what? Somebody said to me, well, would you support President Trump if he's, no, I think the president, I don't care whether it's President Trump, President Biden, they need to stay out of this. Let justice occur.
Exactly. And President Trump wouldn't have done that. He had plenty of opportunities to weigh in, and he never did. He knows better.
Hey, Tom, you're muted.
Sure am. Great question. We're going to move on to Dale Cummins. He has our next question. Go ahead and unmute Dale.
Yeah. Jim, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I hate to start with a complaint, but as a law-abiding citizen, I'm hearing stuff that's just disgusting to me. I don't want to hear more laws and more policing and juvenile courts and all this other crap. What I want to hear is that because this is the most tyrannical government we've ever seen in this country, federal, state, and local, I want to see power returned to the people. I want to see Ohio opened up for open carry, and that will right there bring down a lot of crime. I'm not trying to be offensive to either one of you, Sara or Mr. Loomis. The bottom line is you guys don't understand that you are now reaping the rewards of a tyrannical government, and including our governor who thinks that you can edict by his own desires. We're really and truly past that part. I understand why these people are angry. I understand that we're being taken advantage of by people who come in from out of state. I also understand that as a law-abiding citizen, I have my hands tied 99% of the time by an overabundance of silly laws. We need to repeal these stupid laws. We need to return power to the people. Thank you.
Dale, I would tell you this. Thank you for your comments. I do understand your frustration. I would also tell you that I've said this time and time again, that the federal government was given limited powers by the states, and now they're taking absolute powers and trying to shove them down our throats. And that's why I do believe that states have to step back and say no more. It's one of the reasons why I really appreciate Governor DeSantis in Florida, my colleague, who said no more. We're not going to take this on. And I've been pushing this, and tonight I'm hoping that Representative Carruthers takes this as well, that as a state, we need to be able to take back our own power and tell the federal government no more. And then we have to be able to rule ourselves and get it back to the people. I'm sure she agrees with that. And I know Detective Loomis agrees with that, but we have let the federal government take too much, and they're pushing education on us. They're going to push gun laws on us too. That's coming. They're going to push one of the largest tax increases ever in the history because we're letting them do it. At some point in time, our leadership in every state has to say, no more. We've had enough. We're not going to take it anymore. Sarah, you have any thoughts?
I think I obviously I can't stand the administration in Washington. I will tell you that I think, as I said before, the gentleman will be very surprised by a lot of the cuts that we're doing in Ohio. This caucus is extremely Republican, and having a supermajority is not only wonderful, but we're making a lot of changes for the good. So I would hope that he would be pleased in the future. We are certainly working toward that end and cutting a lot of the red tape and cutting a lot of the rules and regulations that the government overseeing us has tried to put on us. As far as gun laws, I don't think you'll be seeing any problematic. I think you'll probably see open carry coming soon. I'm not going to overstate that because I'm not carrying that, so I don't know. But I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you'll be seeing.
Right. Detective, any thoughts on some of the overreach?
Excuse me again, I'm sorry. I believe we are open carry. I believe we do have open carry in the state unless something's changed.
No, we do.
And the as far as the overreach goes, you know, again, that's why we were supporters of President Trump. I'm a huge supporter of President Trump. I've been to the White House numerous times. I've had meetings with him, and he didn't owe anybody anything. And he was trying to get rid of the red tape. And we saw it very successful for 4 years. Lowest everything, lowest unemployment rates, you know. It boggles my mind to think that anybody thinks that things are better now than they were 6 months ago or 7 months ago. You know, we're going in a completely wrong direction. And I agree 100% with the gentleman that called that we need to peel these things back. Now, you can't just leave a void there. You know, you can't just say, well, let's get rid of all the laws because that's going to leave a void there, and that's going to make things very, very difficult for law enforcement to maintain some type of civil order, you know. So, but they just need to be sensible laws. You know, we can't be, you know, you can't handcuff pregnant females now, or females that say that they're pregnant. No matter what their crime is, you have to contact their doctor before you can put a set of handcuffs on them. I mean, that is astronomically ridiculous notion. So guess what we're going to be doing? Every female that we come in contact with is going to be mysteriously pregnant, right? Whether she is or not, to avoid that type, that consequence to whatever bad behavior is going on there. So those are the types of laws that need to be pulled back for sure. I think prison reform, like I said earlier, you know, you get a sentence, give the guy some incentive to get the heck out of there. You know, cut his sentence in half. Not for good behavior. That's a silly notion too. Of course they're going to be good inside prison. You get that welding degree or that electrician's degree or that plumbing certificate. I got no problem as a citizen of the state saying your 8-year sentence is now 4 years. Good luck, man. Good luck with your plumbing business, and go out and do something good with your life. You know, that's the type of common sense reforms that we need out there, and get the prison system out of the private sector. That is a for-profit business and has done nothing but hurt this and every other state in the union that's gone to these private prison systems. The state needs to take control of that. And I don't know if there's a point. It's easy for me to sit here and say it. You know, I know that it's a costly endeavor, but if you want to really do something good and take control of this situation, then those are the types of common sense things that need to be done. You know, so I'm off my
Great.
soap.
Well, you use the right word, common sense.
Yes.
It's common sense.
We
It's
have,
not rocket science.
Yep,
That's for
absolutely. I agree with you.
Go ahead, Tom, with the next
we have
question.
about 10 minutes left here in this town hall, so let's go a little rapid fire. We'll try to get
Hey,
2 or 3 more
listen, I
questions in
hate to
here.
do this, gentlemen. I hate to do this, and I really appreciate this, but I have another commitment. So I appreciate the time. And please, if anybody has any other questions for me that they want to talk with me, please feel free to contact my office at any time. I am always open to talking with anyone, and I appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Representative. Appreciate it.
Anytime.
Thank you, Representative.
Go ahead, Tom. We'll finish up with a
Yep.
few questions.
Let's get a couple in here before we wrap up. Pam Wilson's up next for Steve and the Congressman.
Hi, Congressman. First, thank you for holding this town hall. I think it's very timely and important. And I know we mentioned Stand Your Ground a little bit, which was signed by Governor DeWine. And he also has, I think, over $1 million dedicated each year for funding for community police relations. And I just wanted to see if those are the type of common sense reforms that you're advocating for and that Mr. Loomis is advocating for as well, if you think that those are helpful.
Well, I would answer first and say absolutely. And I'm happy to see the governor sign Stand Your Ground. He was hesitant to do it. So I'm glad to see he finally did do it. But I do think, and the Detective Loomis is probably better at answering this question, that I think anytime you can have a relationship with your police. I mean, I remember when I was growing up, I mean, as you know, the Representative Carruthers said, I mean, the police were your friends. I mean, your parents taught you that they were the people you go to if there's a problem. I mean, I still remember my son, who was 6 years old, kind of frayed away from us one time when we were visiting Washington, D.C., and we were looking all over for him. And the next thing you know, he knew, he was smart enough to go to the police. Even at 6 years old, we taught him. And the police came up to us and asked us if we had a son by the name of Ryan Renacci. And we said, yeah. And they said, well, he's with us. And I think that's so important. But we have to have those relationships. And Detective, you could probably add even more to that thought.
It's absolutely huge. I'll tell you a very quick story. I was in 7th grade at a little Catholic grammar school in Rochester, New York. And there was a police officer. His first name was Sean, and he was in charge of pulling over people that cut through the church parking lot. I went to a Catholic school. That was our playground, and he would pull them over, and he would show, you know, the boys would show he'd show them the engine, and the girls were all swooning over them. And I knew right then and there, because of that positive interaction, that I wanted to go into law enforcement. I didn't have anybody in my family. I was the first one. My brother and sister since have gone, but I knew the direction that I wanted to take my life, and I made decisions in my high school years and things like that to promote that, because I knew that I wanted to go into law enforcement and the public service. We are desperately missing those types of interactions, positive interactions. When I was a rookie, we would go out to these schools on career day, and you know, as a rookie, I didn't understand the importance of it then. I do now. But the helicopter would land, the horses would come out, the fire trucks would come out, and these kids would come out there and their eyeballs were this big, wanting to stand in line just to stand next to that helicopter. Those were all positive interactions that happen on a daily basis all summer long. Trust me when I tell you, all summer long, that kind of stuff was going on. And we have not had those opportunities since 2004. You know, they'll tell you, well, we have a community policing unit in the city of Cleveland. It's 4 guys. You know, I'm talking about entire districts and motorcycle cops and the horses and the canines and everybody, you know, having a good time. We are missing that, and we're paying the piper for that now, because that all ended in 2004 with, Jane Campbell getting rid of 252 police officers in one day. And those were the types of units that went away. And now we're paying the piper, because all those kids that could have been reaching and having positive contact with are now all in their late teens, early 20s, some of them in their 30s, I guess. And we got problems with them. I'm not saying it's the panacea to have career days again, but it's a step in the right direction. It's a common sense step. And if Governor DeWine or whoever, wants to help the cities fund that because, that's their excuse for not doing it anymore. So we don't have the money, we don't have the manpower, we don't have the resources. We got to have everybody out in the street. Well, why don't we have the manpower, the resources? Because you guys got rid of them all. So right now we're operating with 120 person below our budgeted strength. It's ludicrous. The things that go on and the solutions are so simple that you just there's no political will to pull them off.
One thing that'd be interesting that is if the governor would actually require this to be done. Again, leadership sometimes at the top has to say this has to be done.
Sure.
And then people will hear. Right now, people aren't even aware that these dollars are available, nor are they hearing that the governor is requiring it, pushing it, whatever. That's where leadership really is needed in many, many cases.
Yeah, and the only interaction that we're having with these kids now is negative. We're taking away their brother to jail. We're taking their father and a domestic to jail. You know what I mean? It's all negative. There's no cops in school. Like I suggested earlier, put an office in those schools. And Jim, you and I go and I do my accident reports and you're out glad handing with the kids. Right. What is wrong with that? That doesn't cost anything. I even told the mayor that the union would buy the coffee makers for whatever room he gave us and whatever building he gave us. And everybody thought it was a great idea, but they just didn't have the political, even the Department of Justice guys that are here monitoring the consent decree thought it was a great idea, but they just don't have the political will to pull it off,
One thing I would tell you, and again, it reminded me of what you were saying there. So I had a group of individuals that in Cleveland, and what we were doing as mentors was trying to get kids off the street into this mentorship program and then taking them to the police, the fire, to business and all these things, because you're exactly right. Some of these kids never get that opportunity to see the inside of a police station other than when they're getting drug in a car or a fire station or a business. And I think those are the things we've got to do more of.
Sure. We used to have enough cars in the district, and we'd go to Carruthers Park. It's down by 480 here in Cleveland. And they had Little League in there. And we would drive the car out there because we had enough cars on the road to handle the business. So we go out there. You got to see these kids, talking on the PA system and everything else. I mean, it was, and the cops love doing it. That's the thing. We would much rather be doing that and having a snowball fight or playing basketball, in the street than chasing bad guys and getting yelled at all the time. We wanted a society where we're getting fewer calls for service every day, not more. And right now we're not anywhere near that. Our calls for service are increasing on exponentially, and they're more serious crimes, and that's just a lack of political will.
We're going to jump to our last live question. Then I have one that was written in that it's important for the end here. So Jennifer Coleman will be our last live question, and we have one more that was emailed in.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. This question is for Steve. I am a FOPA Lodge 66 secretary, and I feel like you're welcome, and thank you for being a police officer. I feel like if people really want to get involved in their local community, they really should reach out to the FOP and the FOPA. Could you talk a little bit about that, sir?
Yeah, absolutely. The unions, are huge in the community response. We're obligated in the bylaws of the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association to spend 10% of our income into the community policing efforts. We're constantly, the Boy Scouts, the Girl Scouts, whatever it is, usually we're writing a check for it, at least when I was there, and having them come in. And that is a huge and a tremendous outlet. If anybody needs anything, the police officers and the police unions love to be involved in those types of community projects and community awareness issues. And, there is not a better, more integral group of people on the face of the planet, in my opinion, than first responders. Whether they're supporting first responders in some other capacity, or whether it's the guys and gals that are out in the streets with the boots. But we can't do it without the community. There's just no way to do it without the community. I can tell you 100% guaranteed that the community that we see on CNN and MSNBC and all these other news networks is not representative of the community that the men and women of law enforcement and the fire department, EMS, that we see on a daily basis out in those neighborhoods. So absolutely, the police unions, especially in the state of Ohio, are very strong. They're very well financed, and they're more than willing to get involved in community projects and actually love doing it.
Great question, Jennifer, and great answer, Steve. This kind of ties in similar to the last question that was messaged in from Liz Banyo. Her question is, how do citizens watching the town hall tonight really make a difference? Who do they need to reach out to, and what do they need to do to move the needle to restore law and order in this state and our communities? Maybe Steve start, Jim wrap it up, and then close out tonight.
Well, involvement, being in the homicide unit, we're constantly seeking assistance from citizens in or around, some of the most heinous crimes that the city has to offer. And, they have to have a comfortable feeling in dealing with us, that we're not going to throw them under the bus, that there's things that we can do with the information they can provide us, point us in the right direction. But the bottom line is that we absolutely need the assistance of the community. It is a community police effort to keep things as safe as possible and the quality of life as good as possible in those communities. We can't do it by ourselves. These activist groups certainly aren't going to do it. They care less about what goes on in the community. They're pushing their agenda. Hundreds of millions of dollars go to Black Lives Matter. You think those guys could write a check to some rec centers or even sponsor some baseball teams or something? They do nothing with it. They buy houses and they buy cars and they live the life, the hierarchy in that organization. So it's up to the law-abiding citizens. Vote properly. If you have a city councilman that's not, do your research, because everybody says something different at election time than what their history is. Most everybody. Do your research and support the cops any way that you can, and the firemen. If that's a police memorial weekend, or calling to say an officer did a good job, that's something else too. The cities make it very, very easy for people to file complaints against us. What they don't do, and what we've asked them to do for decades now, is make it just as easy for somebody to file a compliment. Hey, this guy stopped and changed my tire on the highway. They don't make that easy to do, and there's a reason that they don't make that easy to do, because they know, the powers that be know, that the compliments are going to outweigh the complaints 1,000 to 1, because that's who we are. That's what we do out here. So the citizens out there, the law-abiding citizens, if you see something good going on with the cop, don't hesitate to give somebody a call about it. If you see something going on bad in your neighborhood, blow up the phones of the city councilman in that area. And if he doesn't do anything about it, then find another city councilman. That's a big problem here in Cleveland. They have ward politics. So those guys don't care about the big picture of Cleveland. They care about their little fiefdom, their little ward. If they put some signs up and have a pancake social a week before election, they're going to be okay. It's mind-boggling, but we need the support of the citizens. And I don't even know if I answered your question or not.
I think so.
One thing I will tell you, Detective, is that you did answer the question. I think the answer is that anybody that's on this call tonight in this town hall is already started. You started by getting involved, being part of this, listening. But the real key is, and you heard Steve say this, you've got to get involved. Whether it's calling your House member, whether it's calling your council person, whether it's calling your mayor. And look, the more people that get involved, the easier it's going to be to change things. Too often, and I understand this, everybody's busy and they go, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get involved. I don't want the hassle. I don't want the people showing up at my door. I don't want the concern that somebody's going to throw up, this at me or whatever. Well, I got to tell you, when I ran for Congress, I learned a big lesson. You got to have some thick skin and you got to be willing to do what's right. But this stuff's easy because the police are already on our side. The firefighters, the first responders, they're on our side. And what we have to do is speak just as loud as that small minority of people who are saying defund the police. They're radical. They're this, they're that. I guarantee you there is a larger majority that says, thank you, police. Thank you, first responders. And thank you for all you do. And let's do that. Compliment them. Every time I see a police officer, I thank them. Every time I see a veteran, I thank them. If we do more of that and we get involved, but don't forget, and Steve said this, politics is a dirty business because they only worry about one thing. Most politicians only worry about the next election. And whether it's a week before on that pancake breakfast, what you got to do is you got to ask the right questions, see what they did, see what they voted for, see how they voted. And quite frankly, don't just vote R&D, vote for the person who's going to best represent you and in the future. I think of it this way. I have a brand new eight-month-old grandchild, and I can still think about every day, what are we leaving our children and grandchildren? If you do that, I think we can change things going forward, put the right people in office, and make a difference. So, Steve, I want to thank you for being here tonight.
If I could just interrupt for 1 second, people are hesitant to get involved because they're scared. All right. And I understand that. But if you see something, you can call Crime Stoppers and remain completely anonymous through that whole thing. So that's a way that you can help as well. Flood Crime Stoppers. If you see something that's going on that's not right, give them a call because we don't have to come knocking on your door and we won't. Even if I call you, I'll meet you for coffee and we can talk about whatever it is that you saw or didn't see. So there's other ways that we can go about working together that aren't in the public eye as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, again, I want to thank you, Steve, and for those on the call tonight and on the town hall, if you want to get more involved, email us at team@jimrenacci.com. If you want to follow us on social media, facebook.com/JimRenacci, twitter.com/JimRenacci. If you go to jimrenacci.com, you're going to see that we are continuing to try and get the message out to talk about these things. This is our 8th town hall. Education is going to be one of our future town halls. We got a series of about 12 of them. We look forward to having you in the future. Thank you for being here tonight. God bless you all. And God bless this great state of Ohio and this great country as well.